Hello, I'm Jack, the Northumbria Horror Society, and I'll be talking about the 2019 film Parasite. I'm here with Jess,
Hello.
and yeah, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite.
Yep. Directed by Bong Joon-ho and written also by Bong Joon-ho and Han Ji-won.
Very nice. So, this is my first impressions of the film because we literally just finished watching it. However, Jess, you've seen it a couple of times, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen it. I think this was my third or fourth time seeing it.
I really liked it, but quite a few times through the film, it had me going, "What is going on?" And I think it was just because I, every time something new got added, I was still processing the thing that had happened before.
Hmm.
So when everything started, I'd also spoiler warning before we start.
Yeah,
Spoiler
definitely
warning.
will be a lot of spoilers.
Beep beep beep. Spoilers. So the first thing that that really threw me was everything starts getting all the events start getting kind of condensed towards the end, and everything starts happening quicker and quicker. Like the point where everything that starts flooding, I'm still thinking about things like two scenes ago when they were lying under the table. Like I'm still like way back there.
Yeah. So, just to give an overall, or just a quick overall of the film for people who haven't seen it but do want to watch it anyway, just so that you do have some context. The film is set in Seoul, South Korea. It was made and is set in 2019. And it follows the two families, the Kims, who are, the lower class, below the poverty line, poorer family, and the Parks, who are, the major, like, I'm not just saying rich, majorly rich in Korean society. There are a lot of ways, both visually and just contextually, that you can see that difference. And Bong Joon-ho really spells that out for you, but also he leaves things for you to see. So it follows these two families, and basically the Kims, the lower class family, sort of, I want to say infiltrate the
Yeah.
Parks family. However, they don't do it in an illegal way or anything like that. There is a little bit of trickery involved, but they are just doing it to survive, basically.
We got some shenanigans going on
Yeah,
basically.
100%.
Some
Well,
foolery.
as it unfolds, it seems that not everything is always as it seems, and
Yeah.
so there is some stuff going on.
In the words of the Wizards of Waverly Place.
Everything is not what it seems.
But we'll probably get more into that later.
Yeah. So there's the two families, obviously the Parks and the Kims. We've already mentioned that there's kind of the class divide, where there's one family's incredibly rich, especially by Korean standards. One family's quite poor, especially again by Korean standards.
Yeah.
So they live in what would, I guess, in other societies it would be like the equivalent economic standard of a slum.
Yeah, as close to a developed countries type slum can get.
Yeah, like they make a point that they do have Wi-Fi, they do have access to the films, they do because they get it back on.
I have a cultural thing there that I think you will have missed. So they refer to it as IP time. That's the Wi-Fi that they're talking about, and actually
that's the free one that's above them, though.
Yeah. So are you talking about the
I'm
lower
talking about
class?
Yeah. When they mentioned that they changed the password on the free Wi-Fi upstairs.
It's basically IP time is a very cheap standard sort of Wi-Fi that you have in Korea. There's not that many to choose from. That's a standard, and as default, it comes without a password. So people tend to leech off of it, and quite a lot of time when people do realise, that they are doing that, they change it to 1, 2, 3, which is why they said did you try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And you're like, yeah, it didn't work. So that's something culturally there that you probably didn't know.
They try to connect to that, and it just doesn't work. And then they try and connect to the anywhere in the house. Can we get Wi-Fi? Right in the back corner of the house, they managed to get a little bit of connection from a new coffee shop that's been put up. Also, they mentioned that it's 2G, which I thought was interesting because obviously everywhere's 4G, 5G. Everyone's touting all the different Gs, and then they're still on 2 because they're not very well developed.
Culturally as well, that's a really big thing because I don't know if you know this or not, but statistically, factually, Korea has the best and fastest internet of anywhere in the world. It's a huge, that is where their marketplace is, and they get so much stuff from that's a really important thing to know. Also, I don't know if we mentioned it, but the Kims actually live that it's in a house. It's basically in the basement of a house, and they have this little strip of window, which is their little bit of light. They literally, figuratively, and literally live below the poverty line.
Yeah.
They live underground.
They refer to it as a semi-basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they managed to get the Wi-Fi out the corner of
Mm-hmm.
the room, and they check WhatsApp with it. And then from there, they arranged the job with the folding boxes. Well, they already have the job arranged, but they arranged for them to come and pick up the boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the woman, when she comes to pick up the boxes, says like, well, I'm gonna have to dock the pay by like 10% because
Mm-hmm.
like a quarter of the boxes are like not properly done.
Yeah.
Which
and,
I think actually 10% in that situation, she seemed like she was really trying to like throw him a bone, because they're like 25% of the boxes were messed up, and she was like, look, I've still got to run a business, and you still naff me boxes up.
Yeah, something that I want to add there from a cultural bit. Just for anyone who's not aware, I do actually study Korean culture, so there are a few things that, if I see them, obviously I don't know all of them, but I'll just jump out and say it, that I think that maybe a Western audience wouldn't necessarily pick up on straight away. So the first thing is, I've said it before to you, Jack, is that Korea has, I guess, sort of two different types of language, in a sense that, they have the Panmal, they have the everyday talk that they use, and then they have the Chondaemal, which is they use to speak to a hierarchy, and usually, the younger people will say that to the older generation as a sign of respect. But actually, this lady, this woman who's paying them, is young, she's younger than all of them, and yet the son, Kyu, he's speaking to her in really formal Chondaemal, it's really trying to butter her up to try and get the best deal out of it, which is really odd in that situation. And it really shows, how desperately they need that money and that job. As well, another thing to know, you'll see later on in the film as well, when she's paying them in 10,000 won, which is basically notes of 10,000 won, which is, like being paid in dollars, in notes of dollars. And then later on in the film, they're being paid in 50s. So, that's a really big thing to say about it. And, this 10% that you're talking about, it does seem like a lifeline in a way, but when you're only being paid, pennies for all this work, it takes all four of them to do this work.
Yeah. To me, I guess it seems different when you're thinking of it from like 10%. That's less than she could have taken. She could have taken 25, but really the other way around. You should be looking at it like 10% still more than they could afford. Yeah. But even with the 10% taken off, they still managed to get their Wi-Fi back. And also the son, Kyu. He manages to get the part-time job because he also kind of talks her up on it, and he's like, well, look, you've had the guy leave, you've had the your part-time worker leave, let me come in and do it, I'll have an interview tomorrow.
Well, actually,
she's like, okay.
He's he's trying to convince her because he knows that a phenomenal actor, and I recommend anything that he's in. Anyway, he comes to the house, he's a family friend, and he knows that they're quite poor and not well off. And he brings this rock that signifies material wealth. And when they ask about, when they notice that it's gone, it turns out his family member collects them. He's literally got it to spare. He's got wealth to spare. So he just takes it and gives it to them. And even though it is just a rock, and it does become a really important motif throughout the film, Q really sticks to this rock. This rock is what will turn my life around. This is what's going to make us get out of that poverty line. And as much as it does, in the end, it becomes his undoing. I think we'll probably explain more about it further on in the podcast. But I just want to ask Jack now. What did you think about the title?
See, something kind of clicked with me about halfway through.
Yeah.
Which was that they're the Parasite. Because when I first saw all the media for it, the only marketing I saw was a couple of images, and I saw the cover of the movie, which is where they're in the garden and the screen doors open. You can't really tell what's going on in the background. So I had no idea what this movie was about. I saw the title Parasite, the first thing that popped into my head was, does one of them catch some sort of disease? Is it like, is it some sort of like alien thing? Especially when the previous housekeeper appears on the doorstep looking all dishevelled. It was very suspicious to me. This is a horror movie red flag. This is a she's gonna give you some sort of weird alien goo. It was like setting off all these like red flags in my brain, and then it was like, oh no, wait a minute. No, they're the parasites. They're the ones leeching off of, because there's a line at the I can't remember if it's the daughter or the father, but one of them says like, oh, all the money that's coming from their household into ours, and that was just kind of like a, oh my god, they're the parasites. They're taking away from them. They're like sucking the blood from there.
But something really interesting about that is the fact that, yes, they are technically in a way parasites, and they are, taking their money, but they are still providing a service. They don't just want a free ride. They want to work. They just haven't been given the chance. And the reason that Q and Jessica, I'll refer to her as Jessica throughout this probably, but it's actually Ki-jung, if anyone was wondering. But they are both incredibly intellectual people, as individuals and together. They have both got brilliant minds. And the fact is, even Min says to Kyo, you've taken the college exam 4 times in all aspects of English. There is no one better than you. But the reason that neither of them can get good jobs is because they don't have the funds to get into university. And a degree is everything.
Yeah,
it is everything. So that's really important. But back to the parasite point of it, is that at the end of the day, the original housekeeper and the Kim family, they both want to work. They both want the same thing. And as much as they are both trying to leech off of the parks, they're not fighting to be the parks. They're not fighting to be rich. They're just fighting to survive. They don't have any ulterior motive of trying to get amazingly rich and Q, as much as he may like fall in love with Dahi, the daughter of the rich family, he's not trying to do this to take their money or anything. They just want to live a good life.
Yeah, it's like, I think as well, that also is interesting, because obviously Min says that he loves her, and he wants to like confess that once she's in university, and then Kyu uses his exact words to his family, and it's like they're literally like, to get to where they want to be, they're taking everything they can get, even if it means screwing a couple people over on the way.
Definitely. But I don't think that anyone in the family is,
I don't think they're malicious. I don't think they want to. I don't think they want to screw them over. I just think it's
it's crime of necessity.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing it because they have to, but they also, it's like it kind of, I think it's, you're supposed to have that conflict of like, I mean, I'm being made to empathize with them, but also they're doing some kind of bad stuff. Like, you don't want to hate them, but you don't want to agree with them either, I guess. Like, they're like doing the wrong things for the right reasons.
Yeah, and is there any other, motifs or reasonings that you can think of off the top of your head about why it's called Parasite?
There's the flies on the bodies. That's only a little thing that I picked up.
Yeah, well, actually, something that I thought about, is what do parasites eat? They eat rotting flesh. That's what they do. And at the start you can see, that the Mr. Kim, Kitek is, flicking away the
stink bug,
the stink bug and everything. and rotten flesh, it stinks, it decays, it's
Yeah.
awful, and then that's when you get into that motif of smell, which
The
is
smell thing is like very heavily threaded throughout the movie.
it's subtle, but it's so threaded.
It's subtle, except for about 2 points where it kind of smacks you in the face.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, because for most of it, it's like brought up in offhand comments, or like it's mentioned briefly, or it's like they'll say some just like throwaway line about like, yeah, this smell.
To me,
like,
the motif of smell, it just shows the ignorance, in a sense, of Mr. Park. Because, he uses it as offhand comments and stuff, but, he doesn't know what it is. At some point, he said it's like subway people, and obviously, he's riding in Bentley every day, he's rich, he hasn't been on the subway in such a long time. And it's that thing that no matter who the Kims pretend to be, and no matter how high up they get in this life, they can't take away their smell because of where they live. They can never not have that smell, and it's that decaying, awful smell that they've got, the damp, everything, that then at the end Mr. Park notices about, the guy locked in the basement, and Mr. Kim sees that, and that's when he's like, it's just Mr. Kim doesn't realise, these people are living in poverty, the guy in the basement hasn't showered in years and everything, but to him it's just, a bad smell.
Yeah.
Right, like it's just one of those things that gives it away.
I think as well, it's interesting because obviously you said that like the whole theme of them like never getting away from that smell and it following them everywhere. And then I feel like the ending, I want to talk about it a little bit now, but I'll come back to it later as well. The ending obviously is very powerful, but it's kind of signifies that they've gotten away from that past life, because they're in the house, the open plan area, and they're in the garden. And it's fresh air, and he steps out into the fresh air, and it's like they're all outside breathing in the fresh air, and obviously they're in the posh house now, so the smell will be gone. And I think it's kind of interesting because obviously they lose Jessica before that point, and it's like they've gotten away, they've left behind that life, but also they've had to leave her behind as well.
Something as well, to another point to add on to that, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned Jessica, because it is said again about the smell, Jessica is the one who's taking that luscious that bubble bath in the posh people's house. She's lost that smell. She is what could be, she's the only one out of all of them who really could fit in. And even Q says himself, she really is, out of all of them, the one who fits in the most with the rich people, and she could very easily adapt to that. So she's lost that smell, she's lost that sense of poverty about her that other people might notice, and it's just ironic and just sad that out of all of them, she's the one who gets murdered, and it's just one of those things, and it's that she almost made it, she very almost nearly made it, but out of all of them, she was the one who died, and that's just life, I guess.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to another point?
Yeah, ask me another question if you've got more.
So, what did you find any other motifs that you can
Obviously, we've already talked about smell.
Smell is a huge
We've
one.
already talked about
the rock.
the rock. And then there's kind of the motif with food, where it starts off that they're eating like he's eating like pieces of bread and stuff.
Yeah, they're eating bread.
They're eating like barely anything.
Yeah.
Just because they can eat what they can afford. And then when they get the money from the pizza box stuff, they go to, is it when they go to a buffet, or is it after Q does the first tutoring session?
No. So after they get paid from the pizza place, this is when they've been given, dollars, you know,
Yeah.
pounds, like scraps. That's when they get the really, like, some people might miss it if they don't know about it, but, you know, there's this really cheap beer in
Yeah.
Korea. You know, it's awful, it's metallic, it's not nice, and they're eating bar snacks, and that's sort of, you know, sort of a treat for them, I guess.
Oh, so bar snacks and Heineken.
Not quite.
Port lumps and Heineken, basically. But
And
like,
then,
if you multiplied the cheapness by about 20,
Yeah,
Um,
and then later they go
to like an all-you-can
they
eat
go
buffet,
to
but
it's
it's like a really crappy one, right?
식당, and basically it's a really cheap buffet, but you know there's rice, there's banchan, there's meat, you know,
Yeah.
like it's still leagues above what they were eating, and everything, and then there's that, and then again later on, you know, when they're in the house and the parts have gone, they're eating their food, and it's you know the posh whiskey and everything.
Yeah.
Something to note though actually is just before that they get paid again and they're eating barbecue in their house.
Yeah.
And they're all drinking a lot more expensive beer except for the mum, which I find really interesting. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
It's probably just like an acquired taste type thing, like and also might be to do with like tradition, I guess, because like it could be seen in that she's the last one to like become a part of the household,
Maybe.
and I think she seems kind of like she's like the last one to adopt that change.
To be
and
honest,
also
I think she had the most content with their
Yeah.
life already.
Yeah.
You know, Kitek really wanted to better his family. You know, Kyu really wanted to go to university and marry Daddy. You know, and Jessica's just brilliant. She could have done anything. So they have that more expensive taste. But I do think that that the mum, Chung-suk, I really think that she was, you know, content and she just wanted what was best for her family, but selflessly, you know, she's like, you have the better food, you have the better drinks. I'm happy with what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that happens, and then the main thing I want to pick up on, because I do this a lot in the actual podcast because it's short segments and it's easier for me to point people in the right direction as someone who knows more about it than me, who can talk about it for like 30 minutes where I have normally got 10. Because this is a bit more long form, I'll talk a little bit on the points that he made as well.
Yeah.
Basically, I want to shout out the video that Binge with Babish made, where he makes the ramdon from chapaguri, which is ramen noodles and udon noodles, which are both like packaged noodles, like cheap packet noodles. Both of them mixed together, which is like just a normal thing that you could like eat. But then they add it says in the subtitles sirloin, but I know you said it's not sirloin.
No, it's hanu beef, which is the same grade as around, like, it's more expensive than Japanese wagyu. It's more like like Kobe beef sort of.
Like
the highest of the high that you could get in regards to meat.
So it's like that food in itself is kind of like a representation of the two families.
Yeah.
Because it's like the cheap packeted ramen and udon mixed together with this like really luscious, like extravagant, expensive, kind of, I don't want to say wasteful, but like spending more money than you really need to for like a simple meal. It's this steak, and it's like so expensive, and like, yeah, it's just like a lot of money has been spent on this one meal. It's very, very expensive, and I find that quite kind of interesting because it's like the mixing of the two, and it happens while all 9, however many people there is, are all in the same house, and like all like both the classes are mixed in this same house, and they're mixed in this like same pot at the same time.
Yeah.
That's just what I got from that, and also obviously, watch the Binge with Babish episode because he talks a lot about like the themes as well.
For context, like, I'll just add to that if that's alright. So chapaguri is, obviously they called it ramdon because that was the closest I guess translation because of ramen and udon. Chapaguri is actually chapaghetti and I think noguri. It's two different type of, basically, the cheap packet ramen noodles, like Jack said, they're literally worth maybe like 40p each. They're really a thing. And actually, I never thought about, the two worlds mixing. I think that's a really interesting point. What I got from it was that, they've taken something so like inexpensive, something so low class, and mixed it with, 200 plus pounds worth of beef, and to me that just shows how clueless they are about worth, about money. That the amount of money that they spent on that beef alone could have sustained the Kim family at the start for a month.
Yeah.
That's probably more than what they would have made in a month.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Like 5 times, I'd say.
Probably. I mean, I don't exactly know the statistics, but
I'll put it this way: that kind of steak, that kind of meat is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
I remember seeing like for a good cut of Wagyu, it's like over 200.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's being more expensive than that.
And it's quite a lot.
Crazy. Yeah, they use tons of it.
They use tons.
And it's that like. Just put as much as you want.
And it's just that blatant,
It's that decadence.
They don't know. That I don't think that they understand just how expensive this is, and just how over the top flamboyant it is.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing about them. You can't criticize the fact that they've got money. They didn't. Well, we don't know, but they seem like nice people, and they always say, the poorer characters always say, they're such nice they shows in society just how uneducated how they are.
They describe Mrs. Kim, not Mrs. Kim, sorry, Mrs. Park as being like nice but simple.
Yeah.
She's like a good person, but she's also kind of dumb.
Yeah,
like
she's naive.
She doesn't really know what she's doing.
Is there any other motifs you can think of?
Other motifs?
Or any points that you think that Bong put in there? I mean, obviously, you've only watched it once.
Well, also, I kind of picked something up about family, how, like, obviously it might just be to do with the fact that the Kims, the children are both, like adults now, really. They're not really kids. But they have that, like, they almost talk to the parents like siblings, or like they're not like friends. They talk to them like there's not that same, I guess, parental respect that you would have like drilled into you.
I think
it's because maybe like the Kyu earns like the money. Like, well, when he sorts the job out and stuff, he's the one earning the money.
Yeah.
And like and then obviously Kitek is talking to him like saying you can have whatever you want, and then obviously Mother Jong-suk says it's his money, it's their money, they earned it.
Yeah, he's paying for it.
Like, yeah, they're paying for it.
That's good. Yeah, I never thought about that. Really.
It's like interesting because obviously the other family is like 2 younger kids. Well, she's not like younger. She's like 17.
Yeah, then, she's almost finished high school.
Yeah, and then Dasong is like 6. So because they're like younger, they kind of look up to the parents and like respect them as you would normally respect parents, and like it's kind of that more, because I know in Korea it's a lot more strict in terms of like,
I wouldn't say necessarily
parental respect,
strict in that sense, but there is definitely a rigid there are rigid rules in society, and
not
there
strict,
are
like,
the roles that you play, and it's a lot more, I want to say a lot more respectful, because no disrespect to our culture and everything, but it's definitely more set in stone, the relationship that you have with, not just with your parents, just with the elder generation anyway, and with people who are in higher up social society than you.
It's like this is a little tangent, but basically because we were discussing how in Korea they have different names for, like, you have to refer to your parents, like I don't remember the exact names, but like you were saying like that different people have like different honorific titles.
Yeah.
And like I found that really interesting because I could call my mum, mother.
I call my dad Mark.
I never call my parents by their first names, but I have called my mum by her first name once before. But it just feels weird to me. But like when I'm older, I probably will.
Yeah.
Like I won't probably call her mum when I'm like 35. You know what I mean?
It depends on
like it's like
it feels like it's interesting that because you've explained like how the honorific stuff works, and it's like someone's younger than you call them something different than someone who's older than you, and like your parents is like another different thing, and like there's all these different words, and we kind of just call each other what we feel comfortable
Yeah, it's
calling
like
each other.
you know when the mother of the Kim family, she finds they first go down to the basement, and the maid's there and her husband, and the maid saying to her, Oni, like which is a really respectful way of saying, basically elder sister, even though they're not related. And she's like, don't call me Oni. And then it switches where the families come out, and so now she's the mother is saying, Don saying, which is really respectful, younger sister. She's like, don't give me that, like.
Yeah, she tells her to turn off basically.
Something that I want to just point out that I've noticed, just from watching it a few times, and obviously I did this in theatre and stuff, is the use of levels.
Yeah.
I think Bong does an amazing job with levels. They start off below ground, below where they are.
I'll point out one thing for this point, just before you say, because I know you're gonna slash it, is when they're laying under the table, and the Parks are laying on the sofa, but not only are they on the sofa, obviously, because they're laying on the sofa, they're not touching the floor at all. I found that quite interesting because obviously it's kind of like we don't even associate with the down there.
I'll get on to that, but they start off in the bottom, and when Q first goes to the Park's house, you can see he's climbing up this hill.
Yeah.
And to me, it does really represent, the crap, the sort, everything is at the bottom, and the good stuff is at the top. So, you see this climb, and eventually, they all do this climb and get higher up, and the two children end up going into the kids' rooms, which are upstairs, that's another elevated level. And life's great, everything's good. It's literally the calm before the storm, and then bang, right in the middle of the film, when this storm hits, that's when everything starts to unfold, and once again they're finding themselves falling back down into this basement even further than what they started off with. And that's something that they're never going to be able to escape. Something that I did notice, which I mentioned about Jessica earlier being the only one who really fit in, is that when they were sat around the table in the parks, laughing and drinking, they were all sat on the floor except for Jessica.
Not only that, but Jessica was upstairs when they were downstairs. They were all down there, and until he comes up to offer her the water, until Q comes up to offer the water,
she was the one upstairs.
She was upstairs in the bath.
Yeah.
And then when she comes downstairs, she's on the sofa there on the floor.
And after...
also, I was going to say the thing about what you were saying about the basement.
Yeah.
When he comes up from the basement at the end, it's like what I was saying earlier about rising up from that poverty, rising up out of it. It's like he's finally stepping up to greet them.
That's true, but just before that, after all this mess has gone on and the Parks have come back, and they finally escaped out, this literal flood of everything is coming down, and you can just see the water and all the rubbish and all the crap from the street running down, and Bong really shows about how they have to literally run down all of these steps, all of these hills, to finally get to their low house where they are, and everything's just gone to crap, But while they are there, what do they save? Jessica saves her fight because she doesn't really have the care. She's not bothered. But for Q, this rock, this motif, he clutches onto it and he doesn't let it go until the following day. Something else, what did I do? I wrote down here that Kitek, he saved his medal. It wasn't anything great. It was a silver medal, but it's just another show that you don't get anywhere in life for winning silver. It's not gold. Second is the first to lose, and it's just one of those things. And even as they have to crawl their way back, they still end up in the basement, which is really just sad, really.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, and again, they can't escape this poverty line. Yeah. What did you think of the ending?
I've already talked about it quite a bit, but I liked it. I thought it was a good end to the film, but it also people who've seen Lord of the Rings, is like, bear with me on this point. People who've seen Lord of the Rings will kind of understand me here. Lord of the Rings has like 6 endings. It just keeps going on, and they add like where you think it's going to end, and then they add another ending, and you're like, right, okay, that's fair enough. I understand you trying to wrap everything up, but like that seems like a good place to end it. Why is it still going on? And like, I don't think that was necessarily the case with Parasite, but I think the place where I thought it was going to end was that moment where
before Q wakes up.
Before Q wakes up, which to me, I'm not saying that would have been like the best place to end it. I do like the way it went, but I think it would have been more powerful for me because it would have ended on that emotional peak, and that doesn't really get done that often. There's always that wrap up at the end. And I
personally thought it was a really emotional ending. Do you think it was a happy ending or a sad ending?
I think it was a sad ending because they just proved that you have to lose something to get far. Like they end up with money, they end up with the big house, but at the cost of Jessica.
Did they end up with the big house?
Well, they did because he had the money. Oh, did they?
Did he?
Did they not move in? Oh.
I deliberately didn't tell Jack this because
I thought they moved in.
So he's writing that letter in response to his dad, but how is he ever going to give him that letter? How is he ever going to do that? Bong, actually, I saw, he said in an interview that, he worked out how long it would take for Q to make the money to be able to afford a house like that, presumably in Gangnam in Korea, which is, a really prestigious area, and it would take over 500 years for Q to ever be able to make that money.
I thought because it was a house that someone had been murdered in and no one wanted to move in there, that it wouldn't be that expensive anymore.
No, because they tricked the foreign people, didn't they? The German people who had just moved there. The realtors.
Oh, of course.
He says that they made suckers out of them or something like that. Yeah.
Of course, I didn't realise that they...
Yeah, no, that would have never happened. That was sort of a fantasy that Q was still working towards this dream, this, I'm going to make money, I'm going to get you out there. But actually the likelihood is that Ki-taek probably would have, died in that basement alone.
I didn't realise. I didn't realise. I genuinely thought that it ended because it's like, I mean, I guess you could kind of, how do you get that from the ending? Because I don't.
To me, like Bong, he gives this bit of hope, and then he snatches it away when you realise that that's still happening while Q's still writing this letter. It's Q's daydream. That's going to happen.
I didn't realise. I thought it was like in other movies where they're writing something and then it like does happen in the future, and it's like when it happens, it's like the writing of it is like they use that as narration, and then it's like kind of like a flash forward. I also thought that because of how his hair's grown longer as well.
No, it was
I genuinely thought that was like a flash forward.
No, I was unsure of it the first time I watched it, but I realised that it is definitely that. And then Bong even says, he confirms that it would never have happened. It would have taken Q over 500 years. Can you imagine how much money these people must have had for him to have to work for 500 years to be able to ever even afford that house?
It's crazy.
It's absolutely mad, and that's just society. Another question that I've got for you is, who was the bad guy in the film?
I don't want to be like generic, but like, society, quote unquote. You can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. Like society, the societal structure of, I don't want to say capitalism bad, but capitalism bad. Like, like money is hard to get when you don't have any, and easy to get when you got a lot.
But my question is, as much as it could be 2D. I mean, obviously, I know you're not saying that, but a lot of people could think, 2D. If the rich people had just given them their money, like some money, they could have lived off of it or whatever. But the Parks aren't bad people,
The Parks are quite good people. I would say the only one that has like moments is the dad, because he has Mr. Park has
Yeah.
his moments where he says some questionable things, but not just about the smell, but also he threatens to take away the job from Mr. Kim if he like pushes it too much.
Yeah.
He's like
It's more of a warning,
you should
isn't it?
see this as if you're at work. When all he said was that he like, you know what I mean? Like he could have said like, oh, let's not discuss that now or something, but kind of threatened his livelihood over it.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of like they're not bad people, but they're just not the sharpest tools in the shed. I feel like as well, Mr. Park uses the fact that he has a lot more intelligence going for him than his wife. Like he does seem like he is kind of holding that over her a little bit, I guess.
No,
not. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just how I've drawn from it, but just from watching it myself, I kind of get the impression that he kind of, obviously that might just be general because of like how patriarchy works or whatever, but it seems like he is kind of like holding a power over her with that relationship. And like he's the breadwinner, he's the moneymaker, he's the one who like he basically has the power.
Yeah, I mean
in the relationship.
That's totally fair. You know,
and he feels like he does hold it over.
While they are in the set, you know, because as I say, you know, they're not bad people. I think it's Mr. Tech says, you know, about. Sorry, I think it's Kitek says about Mrs. Park. You know, she's rich. But still nice, and the wife, the mum continues. She's nice because she's rich. You know, she's not. She never does anything particularly bad. You know, none of them say anything particularly bad.
Yeah.
It's just that they all have that same. How do I word this? You know, they're very much in their own bubble of wealth, and there's nothing more outside of it. You know, after the storm, you know, Kitek and his family's house has been ruined, and all of their belongings and everything. You know, Miss Park, you know, gets them back the next day and she's on the phone call and says, oh, what a blessing that rain was because it got rid of, you know, all the clouds and the pollution in the sky. And she has no idea of what damage it's caused.
And while she's on the phone talking like that, Mr. Kim is in the front seat seething. You can see it on his face. He looks furious at what she's saying. But, like,
he can't say anything.
He holds his tongue. He holds his tongue.
Can't say anything. Yeah.
He's like labelled himself as this veteran prestige driver that like works for a really expensive firm and stuff, and then obviously that's clearly not what it is, but he can't say that to her.
Yeah, to me, you know, everything comes round in a circle constantly. You know, they start off in the basement and they end up in the basement and everything, you know, but for the mother and Kyu, you know, they don't end up in a worse situation. Obviously, you know, they lose Jessica and Kitek is obviously, you know, trapped basically where he is. But something that I want to know if you picked up on or not is, you know, every few years in Korea, well, everywhere really, but especially, you know, in Korea in this instance, you know, there's sort of a trend, and like a lot of these, like, shops or something will pop up at once, and then once the trend's over, you know, will go bust. And when Jessica is asking, you know, her dad just before she makes him the driver, you know, she says, were you a driver for when you worked at this company or whatever? Like, he was like, oh no, it's after this company.
After the cake shop.
When this Taiwanese cake shop.
And
actually,
the
husband who was trapped in the basement originally was the owner of that shop. You know?
Yeah, I noticed that, but I didn't want to say anything while we were watching it because I didn't want to be like, oh, pause it. I didn't want to, like, distract from the actual what was going on.
But it just shows, you know, everything is full circle.
Yeah.
And it shows that, you know,
everyone's struggling. Like,
everyone is struggling, but also it just shows that it's so difficult to move up a social class.
Shows how, like, hard it is to climb out of that hole.
You know, if you've got nothing, what have you got to build yourself up?
You've not. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, you can't afford a ladder. How do you climb?
Yeah, you know, me and Jack, like, you know, we're okay. You know, we're not poor. We're not going to say that we're like that. But, you know, myself and Jack both come from the place in England that has been for multiple times every year.
But like the crappiest town in the country.
Not that it is, statistically the hardest place to move upper class.
Yeah.
To move across, we're not terrible. We're not like the Kims or anything. We're perfectly fine. Actually, we're both lucky to be in university and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, I worry about it because we're still, from the same place. It is the hardest place in the UK, not even in England, in the UK, to move up a social class.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's difficult for us, and we've got, we've got all these things with us, we've got all these tools, and we still can't move up. How is it ever going to be possible for someone like the Kims in that situation?
That's the thing, is we're in that advantageous situation of we are and can go to university. We can do it and we can pay for it later. They can't do that.
Yeah, at the same time, that's not how the Korean system works.
They just got to pay for it, and if they can't pay for it, they don't get to go. And like, if that was the case over here, I wouldn't be at university either.
Me neither.
But like, none of us would be, because it's so expensive. But like, for them, they have to be able to afford it straight away, or they can't.
The thing is that when the structure of society is built by rich people, that then means that the tools of society and the way that things go will favour the rich. That's just the way that it is. And unfortunately, it's very unlikely that we're ever going to be able to break that cycle, because there's always going to be poverty.
Yeah.
Inflation happens. I could earn a certain amount, but then inflation happens and I'm still in the same situation. It doesn't matter what the figure is, just percentage and statistically wise.
Yeah.
It stays the same, and that's the way that the economy works. It'd crash if it wasn't like that, But how? I think Bong really makes you think about, how we let other people live in society, because at the end of the day, like I said, they weren't fighting to be rich. They weren't fighting, for this, I guess, like, not American dream, but that sort of, you can come from nothing and get to be amazing,
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted to work and be stable and afford to have a life where they weren't, treated as vermin, treated as parasites.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things. And at the end of the film, they have a trial, and the mother and the son is given a suspended sentence. Some of the words used that Q talks about is fraud, but also self-defense. And I just want to know, do you think, bearing in mind that technically speaking they were accessories to murders, to multiple murders, do you think that they deserve the sentence that they got?
I think there were, at the end of the day, it was in self-defense, and I think that this is just coming from me personally. This would be my personal bias, but I would look upon it more lenient, just because of the situation that they were in.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were forced into that situation. Like, how are they going to defend themselves otherwise?
But remember, the thing that they are having the trial for is because the mother stabbed the guy who killed Jessica, the guy in the basement. They don't know about the original maid, and they're blaming Ki-taek on Mr. Park's death. Obviously we don't know what happened with Dasong, so we don't know if he made it or not, but that wasn't really their fault. However, again, it favours the rich.
So the only
if they had known, I think more what I'm asking is that if the law had known the whole situation, what do you think would have been the outcome, and also what do you think should have been the outcome?
I know it would have been the outcome. They'd have all been in jail.
Well, yeah.
Like, which is gutting, considering the fact that they lost the daughter. Well, Q lost his sister,
mm-hmm.
and Ki-taek and Chung-suk lost their daughter.
Yeah.
But they still would have been punished for that, because at the end of the day he did commit a murder.
But also, when they killed Mungguang, technically speaking, it was an accident. You know, it was manslaughter. You know, she wasn't trying to kill him when she kicked her down the stairs. In fact, she didn't. It was later. It was due to the concussion that she had and the feeling of dizziness that then she fell, you know, on the floor, presumably, and that's how she died. But still, you know, but they don't know about that. No one knows about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no.
But also, they didn't know that this man had been living under their basement for 4 years and 3 months.
Yeah, he knew who Mr. Park was, but Mr. Park didn't know who he was.
Exactly.
And you kind of see that moment of realization as well when he yells respect and he realizes that's. Oh my god, that's super.
And also, for me, I think, you know, it's a really big thing at the end that, you know, that this really poor, destitute man is literally living below this rich, wealthy man's feet, and he's idolizing this guy. You know, that's who he wants to be. He's so grateful, but you know, Mr. Park's ignorance once again has no idea who this man is, and of course he'd never know. But on a larger scale, you know, it's same as Mr. Park doesn't know about the low class. He doesn't care to know. You know, it's just one of those types of situations, and Bong really makes you think about how not only how we, well, I say we, but the poor perceive the rich, but how the rich perceive the poor, and do they take any notice? And even though they know that they are there, do they educate themselves to really know what's going on? And unfortunately, the answer is no most of the time. Yeah,
that is unfortunately how things are.
So have you got any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Definitely, obviously, if you stayed past the spoiler warning, you either were fully prepared for a discussion on it, even though you've not seen it, or you have seen it. So if for whatever reason you still haven't watched it, please go and watch it.
Please watch this film. You don't even notice the subtitles if that's your issue.
I would suggest if you intend to watch it, I would suggest renting it via YouTube. I would suggest doing it through YouTube personally, but it's available to buy or rent on like Amazon Prime or to rent on YouTube. I'd suggest doing it through YouTube though, just because you can get it on any platform or whatever. You can do it on your Nintendo Switch if you really want to. TV, anything. It's a really good movie, really worth watching. It does kind of feel like I promise I'm not being paid to say this. I promise I'm not being made to shill for YouTube. But please go watch it if you haven't for whatever reason.
Also, if you think it has been spoiled, there are a lot of things that myself and Jack didn't mention.
Yep.
Just because obviously we only have a certain amount of time, and there are. Honestly, I've watched this film 3-4 times now, and every single time I watch this film, there's something new, and there was just no way that we could say it all.
And if you've watched it, watch it again.
Definitely.
Watch it multiple viewings, because
Make your friends watch it.
If I didn't have Jess here, then I wouldn't have picked up some of the other points.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have noticed, at the end, I wouldn't have noticed that they don't actually, it doesn't actually happen.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of stuff like that you just it takes repeat viewings. Obviously, Cabin in the Woods 1's going up soon, so they'll realise I'm a fan of movies that need repeat viewings to pick everything up.
Yeah.
That's why Shaun of the Dead's my favourite. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, Jess.
Thank you for having me
again.
감사합니다.
And it's a great movie. Go watch it. Thanks everyone for listening.
감사합니다.
Peace out.